passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, welcome to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here, and I'm thrilled today to have Mr. Jim Palmer on the show. Jim is a marketing and business building expert and an in-demand coach. He is the founder of the Dream Biz Academy and Dream Business Coaching and Mastermind Program. Jim is the host of Newsletter Guru TV, the hit weekly web TV show watched by thousands of entrepreneurs and small business owners. And he is also the host of Stick Like Glue Radio, a weekly podcast based on Jim's unique brand of smart marketing and business building strategies. Jim is best known internationally as the Newsletter Guru and creator of No Hassle Newsletters, the ultimate done-for-you newsletter marketing program used by hundreds of clients in 9 countries. Hello, Jim, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria.
Josh Brown, how you doing today? Great to connect with you finally.
I know, thrilled to connect with you. You've got so much experience. You've just got a great personality. You've got a lot of great things going on. So I think there's just going to be a lot of great things to talk about today. And to kick things off, you know, you've really done a lot in your career. And I know from listening to interviews that you've done on other people's shows, Entrepreneur on Fire and other such podcasts, I think you have a really interesting story that will resonate with a lot of my audience. So if we could just kick this thing off with you kind of sharing your career in a capsule up until 2000 and then from 2000 on, because there was a seismic shift right around that time.
Yeah, good description for it. So, you know, I was climbing the corporate ladder. I became a manager of a bicycle store when I was 21 and took that store from just under $300,000 to $1 million in sales, was then hired as a regional manager for a chain of 14 stores in southeastern Pennsylvania and Delaware. And a couple years later, we started franchising that business, Josh, and we grew to 80 stores in 18 states. And then I was recruited to start an association and marketing group in the musical instrument field and did that for a couple of years, very successful. And then I was recruited to be a VP of a training program, VP of marketing. And so I was just really doing well. I think I was 41 at the time. And then all of a sudden, my position was eliminated, is my sanitized way of saying I was suddenly out of work. And I really thought, as well as I had done in my career, Josh, I would just go find another job. I always knew in my heart of hearts I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but at 41, I still had I had 4 teenagers at home. Up until that point, my wife was largely a stay-at-home mom, so I was the sole breadwinner, and you know, direct deposit, vacation, and all the benefits. It's hard to walk away from that, even if you really have a burning desire to start a business. But that my dream, or my goal actually, of just getting another nice job became 15 months of unemployment, in which in the middle of that unemployment, it was the first time I was diagnosed with cancer. So I really kind of hit rock bottom in September 2001. Decided to, at the end of that month, I decided to start my own business. And really, it was after a lot of soul searching, I decided to, kind of take control of my life and my career. And that's when I started my first business, October 2001. So I'll pause here because I'm about halfway through that story.
Well, no, it's a good place to pause and maybe take a step back. You had said that you had grown a business and franchised a business to about 80 locations. Talk a little bit about that experience.
That was crazy. So, you know, when I grew that single store to $1 million in sales, this competitor of mine who had 14 stores locally, he recruited me to be a regional manager for his small at the time chain, but still a decent size for any in that industry. And we were looking at ways that we could keep growing with other people's money, basically. And franchising was something we decided to do. John, the owner of the company, was just an incredible entrepreneur, full of guts and just making big bold decisions, moving very quickly. We ended up selling our first franchise. I should say it took a year, as you full well know, to get all your documents in order and all your files, or all the documents and things you have to do with each state. Everything got in line. Then we quickly sold our first, second, and third units. I was kind of tasked with setting up the training program, the 2-week training program, creating an operations manual. Man, I was real on top of my regular job. I had taken that on, and a couple of years later, I kind of stepped out of the whole retail side. I was still helping do the marketing for that company, but I became the franchise director. And again, we just took off. We were advertising back then USA Today and Entrepreneur Magazine. We were advertising in the airline magazines. And
now, was this retail? Was this a retail?
This was retail, bicycle and fitness stores. Yep. And we were going in strip centers across the country, and it was really a fun business. And we did really well. And then somewhere, I forget the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it was in kind of the mid 90s, franchising as an industry really slowed down. And I seem to remember that was kind of during the Clinton presidency. There was, you could throw a quarter at the curb and it would turn into $1. It was hard not to make money. And so our franchise, like so many other retail or service-based franchises, required you to have a retail store open, and somehow working 60 or 70 hours a week for a 10% return it was very, very much less attractive when you could earn, anywhere 10 to 15% in the stock market and things like that without even trying.
Well, that's sort of interesting. A couple of different things that you point out there. Obviously during that time period, during the Clinton presidency and the economics of that time, or at least for a period of that time, did that time period? It sounds like it probably masked some of the issues that you were having in the franchise. One of the things that I think is so interesting, and I think is a lot of people who listen to this show are just like yourself and other entrepreneurs that are building a business and looking to eventually scale and grow it, and a lot of them look at franchising. Do you recall back then some of your biggest fears and your partner's biggest fears in making that leap? Because I hear about that a lot.
The one thing that I think I didn't fully realize until it happened, but even the owner of the company didn't realize, and ultimately I think it was one of the things that led him to start getting out of the franchise business some years ago, was that when you're a franchisor, it's very much like having a public company, but instead of thousands of stockholders that you got to answer to, you answer to the franchisees. And what we learned is that when things go really well and the locations are opening great, they're making sales, it means the franchisee is really smart and a great business person, right? And if things go bad, it's because the franchisor sucks and isn't providing good support. That's really the way it went. And I think what we learned is that no matter if you're in the product-based business, retail, or service-based business, like carpet cleaning and so many others, it's really a business of relationships. And to be honest with you, when you're taking calls like all the time from franchise, because if you got 80 franchisees, if you got 80 independent franchise locations, there's always going to be a percentage of them that aren't doing well. It's like any group of people. If you had 50 independent entrepreneurs, there's going to be a percent that are doing really well, and there's going to be a big percent that are doing okay, and then there's going to be some that are doing really poorly. But as I say, in the franchise world, you have somebody else as the owner to turn to. You have the franchisor to gripe at, and so that becomes a little grating, actually.
Well, I can imagine, and I know. It's just like you said. It's a particular business model that entrepreneurs choose. I'm curious from that experience and working in the business, and obviously being so intimately involved in franchising. What was that like for you to work through and create an operations manual? Because I know firsthand that is no small task. It
is no small task. The funny thing is, for a long time, I was one that kind of archived a lot of things, and even when I left that company, just for not posterity, but nostalgia, I kept some of the stuff that I'd created. I looked at it a few years ago and I was like, holy moly, is this what we actually offered? But you get better with age, right? Wisdom and experience. And so you just do what you're going to do. And what I figured out is that franchisees weren't necessarily looking for all the bells and whistles. The franchise attorney that we had said, for the most part, franchisees are folks who want to become small business owners, entrepreneurs, but they're like at the 10-yard line. They're ready to go. They've got their money amassed, but they can't pull the trigger themselves, so to speak. And so a franchise, the line that so many people use is you're in business, for yourself, but not by yourself. So they kind of look at the operating system and the proven formula as a way to help ensure that they'll be successful.
Well, and that's a great point. At least, that's my experience as well. I mean, I find that there are different types of entrepreneurs and definitely people who come from a background and are able to fit better within a structured system tend to do better as franchisees in the franchise model, because even though you are technically in business for yourself, you're following to a large part somebody else's rules. But I think it'll be interesting to get your feedback on, to me, more and more, especially with the physical type retail franchises, it's location, and it's localized marketing that I think really makes the biggest difference. Sure, you got to have good operator. You got to have somebody who can manage people. You got to have the good support system from the franchisor. But I think a lot of times people who buy franchises make the mistake of just assuming that it's a business in a box and they're going to buy it, open it up, and bada bing, bada boom, they're going to have all these customers coming in all the time. It takes work. There's a lot of competition out there, even more so now than ever.
Oh, I agree with that. And, to be honest with you, those are unrealistic expectations. And, I was always involved a little bit in the sales process, because it's not just like, look under the hood and I'm going to buy it. We figured out over time, it was like about a 6-month courting process, multiple visits, multiple conversations. I've always been big on, full disclosure to the degree that, let's be realistic. If you enjoy your weekends off, you don't want to be in retail. I try to have everybody fully understand what they're getting into, because, it's about $150,000 investment to get started. And, you learned how to, if you were going to weed away a couple problems, it's better to do it initially than to have them for a 10-year term, which is what a lot of franchise contracts are. Oh,
absolutely. I think that's the average, about 10 years. And I think, before we turn to the balance of your career up to this point, I'd be curious, now that you've had the experience that you've had in franchising, have tasted it, have worked in a system that seems like it had some pretty good fast track growth. What are your thoughts in general on franchising as a scalable model?
I think there's a place for it. I would never go back into it, having been in it before. I look back on my experience as, kind of head of the franchise unit. I was also obviously the one that people turned to when there was a problem or something like that. Everything that I went through, all that experience working with people, has made me a better small business coach today. So I'm super happy for the experience. But, I fully recognize that it's not an easy business, and you have to have, the utmost of patience. And, I think, I don't know this for sure, maybe you know this for sure, but I think it's only gotten even more complicated from a regulatory standpoint as we've moved on in these years. I remember there used to be about a half dozen, then it was 18 or 24 different states, different filings, different things you had to go through. The expense of starting a franchise is pretty enormous.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now there's approximately 15 states that you have that have franchise states that have their own state regulations. There's a whole host of other states that that may have business opportunity laws, which are close to franchise laws. There's others that have exemption requirements. There's the federal side of it. So yeah, whenever I'm advising an entrepreneur, you've got to be looking at all those different things and trying to think sort of with the end in mind in terms of where you're going with it. But I think, to your point, it's not for everyone. And it's interesting, Jim, because I know with myself, I tend to work best with the entrepreneur who really started out as like a passion-driven entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is somebody who got into like a restaurant or a food business, or or some sort of occupation because they really had that drive to do it. They became good at it. They learned to make money with it. And now they want to grow and expand through franchising, but they want to do it in a very measured way. They're not looking to, explode their growth to 200 units over the next 2 years. They're looking to slowly but surely add locations, add people to the system, in large part because people have reached out to them and said, hey, I'd love to have a location in this area. So to me, that's the best way as a percentage to expand through franchising. It's sort of the slow and steady, which in large part cuts against what you'll see on the internet and what you read about a lot, which is, how to grow your business to X number in 6 months and those sorts of things. I see a lot of those businesses ultimately flame out, but I see the slow and steady growth that's really gaining some pretty good traction.
Yeah, I remember later on as our franchise program was kind of winding down, and I don't know what the time point is, but let's say from 50 units on, I was really talking very much directly with interested prospects, and I would ask people, do you have the ability to check your ego at the door and just follow the plan? And that was something I didn't know to ask early on, but it became very apparent. And I remember one of the franchisees who we later became friends, but was a major kind of thorn in my side for first couple of years. He was a VP in a bank, so very, very structured. And, in a bank, they don't give you a lot of wiggle room or free, in other words, you got to toe their line, what I mean? So, and I'm a big fan of customer service. Do whatever it takes to keep the customer happy, keep them a customer longer, keep them referring. I mean, I'm one who's willing to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term profitability. So I remember during the training period, there was probably half a dozen stores in that 2-week training class. And this guy was always sitting there with his arms folded across his chest. And at one point, I just kind of ignore it and say, it's in my head, I'm thinking it's your money. You can pay attention or not. Right. Yeah. And at one point, I'd had enough, and I forget his name. I'll just say, hey, Rob, do you have a problem with something we're talking about, or are you uncomfortable, or what's going on? And he says, no, you know what, Jim, I totally believe in customer service. I'm here to make customers happy, but if they're right, they're right. And if they're wrong, I'm going to tell them they're wrong. And I'm like, oh boy, okay, good luck with that. Yeah. And the whole first year in business, I mean, he was far under what the average store was doing. And he would talk to me almost weekly, and I would say, I just got very candid, and I would say, you know what, listen, that's not the way to do it. And he actually about a year later paid me one of the nicest compliments. I actually wrote about this in my second book, Stick Like Glue, which is about customer retention. I actually wrote about it. He called me up one day. He had gone about maybe 3 or 4 months without us chatting. I was thinking, what's going on? Well, after that, he called me up and said, you know what, I'm a man who's not too big to admit when I'm wrong. And he goes, the Jim Palmer way works. That's what he called my strategies for customer retention. And he said, we are up. It's all I got to do is, I don't care if the customer got a flat and they ran over a nail, I'll fix their flat, make them happy. They buy another bike. I make more money. I said, there you go. It's not the $3 tube that they, get that customer happy so they keep buying more. And so that's when I figured out that whole, do you have the ability to check your ego at the door, or do you feel the need to be right all the time?
Well, it's interesting to me because I can tell from just talking to you now that some of the principles and some of the lessons and experiences that you had while in franchising, you've taken now over to some of the customer service work you do, the marketing work, your books, podcasts, video, all that sort of stuff. Take us now through that part of your journey, which obviously you had some health issues that arose in 2000, and then you were able to change the tide or change the course that you were on after you were told, hey, we no longer need your services.
Right. So I started my first business in October 2001. 4 years later, I was doing multiple six figures. So I thought I was doing well, but I realized that I had just basically created a job, and I started maxing out of my time. I found it very difficult to take any time off because I was doing everything. So I figured I started over once, I'll do it again. So I recreated myself, created an online business, called No Hassle Newsletters was my original online business, and that's still my flagship operation. But I kept adding businesses from there, adding a printing business, a social media business, Pinterest business, all these different things we kept adding and growing and growing. And today I have like 14 people that help me run my various businesses. But for the most part, I've got a business, which I call it a lifestyle business. So if I want to be off, I can be off. My business keeps operating. I'm not doing the daily task oriented things. Largely what I spend my time on today, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are phone days. So that's when I'm coaching entrepreneurs and small business owners, doing interviews like this, and me also interviewing people for my various programs. And then Monday and Friday, I have the ability to be off. But to be honest with you, Josh, I work a lot, but at least I know if Monday and Friday can be production days, and I don't have to worry about any phone calls inbound or outbound. So I've really been able to, create what I call a dream business.
So you essentially went from essentially creating and working in businesses that were very much brick and mortar, very much physical type businesses, to then making the move to create more of a lifestyle business in the online space. And it sounds like you've got a number of different businesses. Talk about the No Hassle newsletters. How'd you come up with that concept, and what is that?
Well, it's very important. I did have somewhat of I call it a corporate background. I never worked for a large corporation, but it's the kind of, I use that distinction because so many people think the most important thing is a logo. I got to have a killer logo. And then you have a name, like the name of my first business was Dynamic Communication, in my head, dynamic. And I can, teach newsletters, and it's okay. But you know what? It's a horrible name. A great name for a business actually tells people what you do and or the benefit of you doing work for them. So in my second incarnation, I created No Hassle newsletters because I would hear some of my clients say it's such a hassle to create a newsletter. So in my second business, I created No Hassle newsletters. And then I kind of adopted that brand. So No Hassle Social Media is another company that I have that provides content for social media marketing, blogging, etc. And I kept going with the kind of the No Hassle theme. About 3 years ago, I've written 6 books in the last 6 years. About 3 years ago, I started venturing off and creating a live event called Dream Business Academy. I started coaching 6 years ago. So I branded my coaching program Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program. So, all along the way, marketing is really key. It's your branding. It's your positioning. You don't have to be the sharpest knife in the drawer. You just have to be seen that way.
Absolutely. I mean, so Tommy, tell me, in the type of people listening to this show are going to, as I've said, are going to be entrepreneurial in nature, but they're either going to be most likely looking at buying a franchise, they own a franchise, or they're looking to grow their business through franchising. We all know marketing is super important. I mean, I've done, I think now 100 and I don't even know, 30 or 35 episodes of this program, and several people I've interviewed have been focused on the marketing side because, as we all know, you can have the best system, the best process, the best people, but you got to have customers. And marketing is always been important, but marketing has changed over time. I remember when I think I interviewed Marcus Sheridan a while back, and he was talking about the intersection between marketing and sales and how, they always used to be sort of segmented groups, and now they're just really one and the same in terms of the funneling and the content world that we live in, and content marketing, putting stuff out there in a way that attracts the people to you as opposed to bombarding them with bluntly the crap they don't care about. And so it seems to me that you teach a lot of these mechanisms, but sum that up for us in terms of what you're doing with all your various businesses from a marketing and customer service perspective.
Well, everything I do is either branded by, Dream Biz or the No Hassle brand. And it has to do with meeting the needs of your prospective clients. I mean, one of the most important things that you need to do is figure out who is your market. So who's the perfect avatar for your prospective clients? And then what is the message that's going to resonate with them? And then you got to use the right media. I mean, one of the reasons that I've been able to do well is that I've spread myself across multiple platforms. And so, as you mentioned, I do video, podcasting, I do newsletters, email and print. I write books. I go out and give speeches. I do social media. I'm probably even leaving out a couple things, but I do it all. And the reason is, Josh, that people consume information differently. I mean, even just in the world of books, some people like to hold a paperback book. Some people like to read on Kindle. Some people like to read, just a downloadable PDF, or, some people like audiobooks. So not everybody's going to, I like audiobooks, but Jim's book doesn't come in audio. Well, maybe I'll just buy it and read it. You're not going to get that person. So the people who are doing really well today have the ability, and they recognize the importance of meeting people where they are with the right message and using the right media platforms to do it.
So in No Hassle newsletters, are you essentially teaching the principles on how to put together a good sort of e-newsletter, or
No.
these physical newsletters, or
No.
what's?
They are print and mail newsletters. No Hassle newsletters is a done-for-you service.
Awesome.
So the clients that join my program, every month we produce their newsletter for them. We have about a dozen different newsletter templates. We have some that are kind of common that any business can use, and then we have probably about a dozen different templates, everything from realtors, dentists, doctors, lawyers, accountants, HVAC, and I can't name them all, but all the probably the 12 most common industries, we have newsletters specifically for them, and they're done. All you really have to do is put your name on it, and you can print it and mail it, or you can customize it if you want. But these are done for you templates every single month. So
You write the stories, you write the content, and all that?
Yep, all done.
Interesting. So tell me how that works, because there might be obviously that's of good interest to a lot of business owners who want to get information out there, but don't, the old they just don't have the time, right? They just don't, or take the time to do that. So how do you work and onboard your own clients and make that process seamless?
It's very simple. I mean, the website is nohasslenewsletters.com, and they can choose. I have like two different levels. You can come in and just get content if you have your own templates, or I have a program where it includes all the templates every month. And so it's a membership. So there is a monthly fee, and then every month you go on the first of the month, you go into the membership site and get that month's newsletter. And by the way, I'm always 1 month in advance. So on July 1st, I gave you the August 1st issue, figuring some people will take a little bit of time to get theirs out. So I'm always producing it 30 days in advance, and we do the printing and mailing, and the fee just depends on the size of the mailing list, but we even take care of that for them. I mean, it truly is no hassle, and you actually named the two biggest things, Josh. People don't have the time, or they don't know what to write about. So I solve both of those problems with no hassle newsletters.
Well, that's it. That sounds great. Now, is there an e component to, or electronic component to that? Or those are just, you said, physical?
The primary thing is physical, but I do produce an email newsletter template that's part of the monthly program. But you don't want to choose one or the other. You need to do both.
Oh, absolutely. You need to do both. Now, does this go? So, if I'm a retail business, do you do this by zip code or mile radius around a physical location, or how do you decide where these go?
Well, it's usually the customer's mailing list. I mean, we do have the ability to purchase a list if people want, but most of our clients have their own existing customer list. And
that's really interesting. You're actually the first person I've ever talked to who has that kind of business. It's really fascinating to me. It's very fascinating. I think it's interesting. I happen to have a client that I work with that does localized magazines. And it's interesting because as much as the print world has suffered over the last several years, localized content, which I would classify newsletters as obviously localized content, but obviously more specific to that business, have really flourished. And a lot of people don't know that. I think, localized newspapers to various towns and communities. I mean, people still want to know what's going on in their home area, and still there is a lot of people who really want to hold on to something and read it. It just feels more tangible. I mean, even myself, as much as I do things online and love technology and the internet and so forth, I still love to read physical books. I love to read physical newspapers.
Yep. And here's the thing. If you have 1,000 customers and you say, well, I think newsletters are good, but I'm going to do the email type, and I'm going to, save the printing and postage. message. Here's the deal. If you got 1,000 names and you send out a really great looking email newsletter, 900 of those people are not going to get it. It's going right into the spam folder. I mean, in the email marketing world, a 10% deliverability rate is doing really, really well. I only use that because I'm math challenged, but realistically, if you get a 5% return, you're going to do well. So, if you think it's important to stay in touch with your customers and you put out an email newsletter only, at least 90% of your customers are not hearing from you. And that's the reason you do print, because 100% of those are going to make it into their mailbox.
No, absolutely. I mean, I get emails all day long, and even now with the various email systems, like with Outlook, they have the function of a clutter feature where it basically senses your email patterns. A lot of times you don't even see the emails in your inbox anymore. They go into a separate folder that you can later look at. But a lot of in sort of the clutter folder, a lot of them are those sort of email marketing newsletters. So you're exactly right. I mean, open rates are continuing to dwindle, and so you have to have ultimately the what you're providing for the business owner is getting in front of their customers repeatedly, so that they're top of mind, and either for themselves or others have an opportunity to go engage in their services. I think that's really smart. That's really
Thank you.
Well, listen, you do so many other things. I'd actually love to have you back on the show, because I feel like we've been talking now for about 30 minutes and just kind of scratched the surface here. But in the interim, can you kind of tell people the best way to reach you? And thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
That's my pleasure. I'll give you a couple websites. Kind of my home base is getjimpalmer.com, www.getjimpalmer.com. I've mentioned my live event. If you want to learn more about that, that's Dream Biz Academy, dreambizacademy.com. And if it's okay with you, my latest book is called Decide. It's the ultimate success trigger. And for your listeners, what I'd like to do is give them a free copy of my book. The only thing we ask is that you pick up the shipping and handling, and that is at decideforsuccessbook.com, decideforsuccessbook.com. And if you don't want to even spend $6, I've actually got a free report called 3 Little-Known Secrets to Working Less, Selling Less, and Making More, and that is at getjimpalmer.com/franchise euphoria. So that's getjimpalmer.com/franchise euphoria. No opt-in required. You just get the report for free.
Well, that is awesome and very, very generous. I really appreciate that, Jim. And
my pleasure.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're really doing some great things. I love hearing and learning about entrepreneurs doing great things to help other entrepreneurs, and that's exactly what you're doing. So,
well, it's a lot of fun, Josh. I'm happy to come back anytime. We'll keep the conversation going.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.